こんにちは。J フィールの重光です。今回は第3回の対話イベントです。皆さんからいただいた質問をまとめて少しアレンジしてインタビューしてみました。今回ヘンリーは特に質問について、面白いねとか、あるいは興味深い質問だとインタビューを楽しんでくれました。彼が何を言ったのかっていうこともそうですけれども、何が面白いと思ったのか、ぜひその辺も味わってみてください。まずは最初の対話会で話題になった互いの違いを認める多様性、公平性、重要性から聞いてみました。
This is a very, very interesting question. The way you put it is wonderful. It's a very interesting question because people change. If you want to change your habit at home or you want to live differently personally, you could do all kinds of things. You could change your relationships, you could travel more, you could travel less, you could spend more time at home. You have great choices. But organizations have established procedures. And so just because of COVID, it doesn't mean the procedures change. So what I'm doing is rewording exactly what you said, but I find it very interesting because I never thought about it that way before. The people change, but organizations don't change. They can change. They do change sometimes, but they haven't changed because of COVID, except for people working at home. But the procedures haven't changed. The rules haven't changed. The managers mostly haven't changed. And so what you get are changed people going back to an unchanged situation. You know, there was a famous expression, it's about training. It's about management training. And it says, never send a changed person back to an unchanged organization. I didn't say that, but somebody said that. I forget who. But we always do. We always do. We don't send changed people back to changed organizations. We send them back to the same organization. So now you have COVID and you have people assessing things and maybe becoming more humanistic in the sense they're more aware. As you say, they're reflecting more on their own lives and their own functions and how they do. And so they're changed, but the organization hasn't changed.
Yes.
Now, organizations don't necessarily change quickly. They change very slowly. Okay. Now, I'm working on an article called "Can the Pandemic Save the Planet?" Okay. And the point, this is the point, that if we were able to change so dramatically with COVID, why can't we change so dramatically with climate change and with income disparities and so on? If we really want to change, we can. And maybe all these people who have changed will force broader change. And coming back to your question, maybe that will change the way companies function, because people will come back and demand something different. So there's no magic formula for how companies can change except listening to their employees. And maybe the smart companies will say, you know, we could be better because of the change in our employees. We could actually find a better way to do things. And so maybe this could get rid of the 10 and 20 and 30 lost years and the, you know, I mean, Japan was very humanistic in the 1980s. It had the most humanistic organizations in the world and was hugely successful in the, I guess, around the 1980s. Maybe this is an opportunity and not a problem.
Thank you very much.
Just one last word. To convert personal change into organizational change.
Okay, convert personal change into.
最初に人を主語にした質問を喜んでくれました。そして天野塾の彼は パンデミックが地球を救えるかという論文を書いているそうです。しかし私たちもパンデミックは本質を問い始める、いいチャンス、好機だという話をしていました。その点では同じです。次は人の変化を組織の変化をするために、鍵を握るのはミドルマネージャーではないかという質問をしていました。15年前、私が最初に会った時もそうでしたが、彼はミドルの定義から話を始めます。彼の組織感が色濃く出ているので、それをぜひ楽しんでください。
Now, you could also say that the middle has two separate meanings in English and probably in Japanese. One is to be stuck in the middle, to be caught in the middle. Okay, like if there's a storm and you're in the middle of the storm, you know, you're stuck in the middle. And middle managers could be stuck in the middle. So we got rid of middle managers. We fired so many years ago. But middle managers can also connect the outside and the operations to the senior management. So if the senior management is concerned with strategy and big picture and vision, and the operating management is concerned with operations, then the middle managers could be the key people to drive change. Okay, not the ones who block change, because the image historically is in the hierarchy, the senior managers send things down, the middle managers block them, right, and make trouble. But it could also be exactly the opposite, that the middle managers connect to the outside. You know, a sales manager knows what the customers are thinking. A chief executive maybe doesn't know what the customers are thinking. So a middle management is also a connecting management. And if we come back to the first question, then you could say that the people who are coming back to the company changed. The middle management can convey that and work out what needs to be changed in the company. So the middle management becomes the critical management, not the top management, not the bottom management, but the middle management.
続いて、仕事と社会貢献について、皆さんからよくお聞きする内容をそのまま伺いました。一つ目は、仕事に社会貢献の意味が見出せないとき、お金のために割り切ってしまう。でも同時に週末はボランティア等をして社会貢献をしていると。自分の中で線引きをして、バランスをとっている。こうした考え方について聞いていました。二つ目は会社の問題です。自分は仕事や職場に対して社会課題に向き合うべきだと働きかけていくんですけれども、経営陣や同僚の関心事は売上とか利益のこと。諦めそうになるんですけども、何かアドバイスをという質問です。彼の答えは株式市場、すなわち資本主義に話は行き着きます。資本主義の次の姿を明確に描いているわけではなさそうですけれども、そこに問題の本質があると考えているようです。
I'm glad you used the word balance, obviously, because, you know, I think not only do we need to balance society, but we need to balance ourselves and our organizations. And so there's the social and there's the political and there's the economic. And essentially what you're saying is the economic dominates. And what you're saying is that people have gone out and they've connected socially, and they want to come back to work and see some balance, not necessarily political, but balance between social and economic. And they're not finding it. But why aren't they finding it? I think the stock market has a lot to do with this. I suspect that these are not people working in entrepreneurial companies, new companies. I suspect these are people working in big established companies. And what's the pressure on those companies? It's shareholder value. And where does that pressure come from? It comes from the stock market. And who does that pressure come onto? Not the middle managers, but the senior managers. They're the ones who are held responsible for economic performance. And they put pressure on the middle managers to perform economically in the short run. And so what's the solution? Very simple, close down the stock markets. I'm half serious. The stock market is destructive. It's destructive for shareholder value itself, because the stock market is about short-term shareholder value, and companies are about long-term stakeholder value. They're about long-term value for the shareholders and long-term value for the employees and long-term value for the customers. Okay, so I drive a Honda. It's about 6 years old. I took it in for service because I didn't take it in during COVID. I took it in for service. There was nothing to fix. Okay. My partner drives a 2003 Honda Accord. My daughter drives, I think, a 2006 Honda Civic. They work well. That company is serving its customers long term. I don't know about the models today, but certainly the models we bought. And so the stock market, now I know Honda's on the stock market too, but the stock market is destructive. And we have to change that. We either have to have fewer companies on the stock market, or we have to tax short-term trading so that people can't trade that quickly without paying a tax on it, or something to focus on long-term. And we have to get rid of executive bonuses. Absolutely close them down, and simply have a rule that any bonus in the company goes as a percentage of salary to everybody. So if the chief executive earns more, they get more of a bonus as a 10%, 20%, whatever it is, of their salary. But a worker also gets 20% of the salary. And that way you get rid of this awful idea that one person, it's not traditional in Japan to put so much focus on a single person. It is in America, and somewhere in between in Canada. but it's not natural to assume that one person is responsible for everything. Very, very destructive. And that person has the pressure of the stock market. And if they can push the price of the stock up real quick, it happened in Toyota when the economist person took over from the family, and almost destroyed Toyota in all kinds of awful ways, until the family took it back. We don't want the economic mentality of greed is good, and and everything is short term, and everything is maximization, and everything is measurement. We need to get past that.
モントリオールを訪れたとき、彼の車に乗せてもらいました。確かに年季の入った車でした。彼は頻繁なモデルチェンジで買い替え需要を煽る必要はないんだと。長く使用に耐える品質の車、そして継続的なメンテナンスを求めています。近視眼的にはそれが売上とか利益と相反するものであっても、そこに企業姿勢を見ていて、真摯な企業に共感をしているのだと思います。ただ、そうしたホンダであっても株式市場からの強いプレッシャーを受けていますし、資本主義は全てをお金に換算していきます。コロナ禍においてもそれは変わりません。人々が不安に駆られるとき、そこに救いの手を差し伸べようと、ある保険会社はコロナ保険を売り出しました。3ヶ月で掛け捨て890円から、その3ヶ月の間に感染が確認されたら10万円を支給するというものでした。しかし感染者が急増したために先日販売が休止しました。社会に貢献することは経済的なメリットがある中でということでしょうか。この点についてさらに聞いていきます。株式市場からのプレッシャーを直接受ける経営者以外の人、ミドルやより若い社員は経済優先の中で何ができるんでしょうか。
I mean, in many organizations, those are the people who drive change in a way because they get together and so on. Now, it depends on the culture of the organization. If everybody's afraid of the senior management and polite and doesn't say honestly what needs to be done, what changed Toyota? What changed Toyota is the family came back. They came in at the top. It wasn't the middle managers, although they were angry. And they wanted to see change. But, There was a famous comment by Franklin Delano Roosevelt when he was president of the United States. And a Black activist asked him if he would support a cause for change. And Roosevelt said, "I know I want to do it. Go out and make me do it." Okay, very interesting. So what that suggests in a company is, number one, you need a top management that wants to be made to do it. Okay, if they don't want to be made to do it, they won't do it. But if they want to be made to do it, forced to do it, or pushed to do it, they'll do it. And then you need a movement in the large part of the organization that says we have to do things differently, and we can gain advantage if we do things differently. The Japanese beat the Americans in the 80s because they built much better organizations. And then Japan went through all its trouble and started to go for shareholder value and started to imitate some of the worst of the Americans. But meanwhile, the Americans haven't really changed. America is successful because of entrepreneurs, certain people, the Bezos and the Schmitz and all those people who created these big, huge companies. They need to, Japan could come back with its strength, which is the concern and commitment of middle people in the organization. And that should be the key to changing the organization, if they can work collectively to make their senior managers do it.
彼は民主が社会を変えた例、アメリカ独立戦争やフランス大革命の例を引き合いに出しながら、人々が連携することの重要性をいつも語っています。彼の論文、コミュニティシップ経営論では、昔の政治だけでなく、ウィキペディアや Linux など、人々が連携しながら価値あるものを創造した例を挙げています。リバランシングソサイティの活動は、彼が起こそうとしている社会運動であって、それが世界にもたらす影響を信じています。次に、第2回で話題になった際限のない欲望について聞いてみました。どうすれば資本主義に踊らされず、身の丈に合った生活を楽しめるのでしょうか。ヘンリー自身の生活についてまず聞いてみました。
I'm a bad example, I think, because I have a charmed life. I earn enough money from my income at McGill and my books and everything that I'm comfortable. I'm not greedy. I don't maximize income because that's just keeping score. So I look at a number and I say, wow, it's bigger than yesterday's. What difference does it make in my life? What the difference it makes in my life is how I'm living every day. And if I'm enjoying things or doing what I like to do, then I do. So, rebalancing society takes, 50% of my time, writing and promoting it and so on and so forth. I don't get paid for that. I mean, I get paid at McGill. If I stopped that and spend more time writing books, I would make more money. And so what would that bring me? I have what I need. I need a new canoe, but otherwise, my old canoe is broken, but otherwise, what do I need? So we eat well, we live well, we have a beautiful house, the children are good, everybody's comfortable. So why destroy the beauty of my life? So I'm not a good example, but other people who are comfortable could stop and say, why do this? Why push this? Now you have people who run NGOs, non-government organizations like Greenpeace or like Doctors Without Borders. And they're not being paid millions and millions of dollars to run these places. And yet they're just as capable, but they earn enough, so they're comfortable, so they're happy doing what they're doing because they can have both. They can have comfortable lives, and they can also feel they're doing something important for the world. So nobody forces anybody to stay in a position of greed unless you have no other talent. But if you wake up and kind of say, what do we really need? And of course, if you want a bigger and bigger house and the house's prices are going up, you get caught into that. On the other hand, you could just move out of the big city and move to a small town, go to Oki Island or somewhere and enjoy life, So we went to Oki Island once. So I imagine the houses aren't too expensive in Oki Island. People lose sight, but the questions the participants are asking is basically, that's what we want. We don't want this greed. That's what I'm hearing. We don't want this greed. We want to do good. And if our company, it's not a question that Honda should now be, a company that worries about income distribution or whatever. We have governments that do that. We have civil society groups that do that. But we do want Honda and every other company to contribute to maintaining the balance. So Honda has been slow to come in with electric cars. I assume they're doing that now. And maybe they could do it better. That would be good. But you can do well by doing good. It doesn't mean you have to become, socially sensitive to everything. But if the company is respected, not only for donating money and cleaning up its own environment, but if a company is respected because its products are helpful and useful, that's good. That's good, and everybody's happy.
生活を変えるには視点を転換することだと彼は語っていました。都市部の一極集中から地方への移住の動きが、コロナ禍において進んでいます。人々は強欲であろうとしているのではなくて、他の選択肢が見えなくなっていただけかもわかりません。それをパンデミックが突きつけていると言えます。次は視点を広げて社会の課題について考えを聞いてみました。
In the article, Can the Pandemic Save the Planet?
Oh, yes.
I'm arguing that what we learned in COVID is that we could change dramatically if we want to. And every company and every organization, just about everyone everywhere, changed dramatically in weeks. So we can change dramatically if we want to. And suddenly we're all wearing masks and we're all keeping distance. And so we can change dramatically if we want to. Well, we have 3 crises that are worse than the pandemic, okay? Worse than the pandemic is not that severe. 4 million people have died from the pandemic. Do you know how many people die from pollution every single year? 7 million. 7 million. So don't tell me the pandemic is our big crisis. Pollution is our big crisis. Almost 2 times as many people, but every single year, and we don't do anything. Enough about it. Okay. Income disparities. Income disparities lead to the election of people like Bolsonaro in Brazil and Trump in America and Johnson with Brexit in Britain. And we will destroy ourselves if we have people like Trump with a finger on the nuclear button. So that's bigger crisis than COVID. Okay, the nuclear thing is bigger than COVID. The income disparities are bigger than COVID. The pollution is bigger than COVID. So we have to address those things. And we see what happens. You had it in Japan, north of Tokyo, with a huge damage from the tsunami, and America and the West is having huge damage with fires, and Haiti. Well, that's an earthquake's different. but storms and all kinds of things. When are we going to wake up? We have to wake up, and we're capable of making dramatic change. So what did we do during COVID? We closed down almost all businesses. We closed down all stores. We closed down almost all business activity. Okay. Now, for pollution, we don't have to close all business activity. We have to close all polluting activity. That should be easy. We closed the whole economy. So why can't we close pollution? You know?
彼は環境汚染、所得格差、核兵器、この3つがコロナ以上の深刻な社会問題だと語っていました。どうすればいいのかという問いに、それらの問題に取り組むことだという答えでした。誰かが魔法を持って解決してくれるわけではないので、私たち自身が行動することだと、当たり前のことを返されてしまったと感じます。そのためには株式市場の影響を受ける企業というプライベートセクターだけではなくて、NPO や市民団体などのソーシャルなプルーラルセクターの役割が今後さらに増していく、そういうことだと思います。私たちはどのようにしてこの大きな問題に取り組む構想力を磨いていけばいいのでしょうか。
It's an interesting question because it's everywhere. In medicine, for example, doctors don't like when I say this, but medicine is about cure, much more than about cause. When people march for breast cancer, they're not marching for the cause of breast cancer, they're marching for cure because the people are worried about getting it or having it. And they don't even stop to think that if we could find the cause of it, we could stop it and we don't have to treat it. We don't need treatment if we know cause. We can find the cause and stop it. Like lung cancer. We had lung cancer, we discovered it was smoking, we stopped smoking. We stopped lung cancer or stopped for people who stopped smoking. And so it's the same thing with climate change. I think that the problem for climate change is imbalance in society. I think it's all the things we're talking about, the overemphasis on economy and greed is what's creating the pollution, which is creating the warming, which is creating climate change. That we have to somehow recognize what the root cause of climate change is, and its imbalance in society, and the imbalance is basically that the business sector, the private sector, is sort of moved well past the private sector. So in America, business controls the government. They buy every member of Congress. They donate money. And as long as that's the case, democracy is finished in America. It's finished in America until they correct that. And it's the same to some extent in other countries. We need leaders who are themselves balanced. I think somebody like Merkel in Germany was somewhat balanced. I think the Scandinavian countries are balanced. I think New Zealand is balanced. I think Japan is relatively balanced compared with the United States or Britain. It's got better balance.
プルーラルセクターも社会課題の本質に迫る必要があると指摘するとともに、やはり根本の問題はプライベートセクターが力を持ちすぎる、バランスを失ったからだと解明します。彼は常にそこに問題意識があるので、何度もこの点を指摘しています。最後に少し日本について言及したので、もう少し聞いてみました。
I don't think that's a new phenomenon. I think always the younger people always push the older people to modernize. Sometimes they don't, but usually they do. I think in a country like Japan, there's probably much more respect for elders. And so people are less inclined to push. And maybe now they've become more inclined to push for change, the women and the young people. I don't think, that's a lack of homogeneity in age, but it's not a lack of homogeneity in being Japanese. It's still, the country is still very Japanese. And if you have to change in order to attract smart young people, in order to attract women, then you're going to have to change. So I think that's healthy, especially because of the racial homogeneity. We have, in addition to the age heterogeneity, we have ethnic heterogeneity. It's quite, I think that's why Canada's number 5 on the economics index, is because we have absorbed, we're the melting pot that America used to be, and we're the mixed country that America used to be. Now all the new generations of America become so American that they want to close off everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And even the Latin Americans in America are a small percentage. The blacks are, I don't know, 10 or 15%, and the I don't know what the numbers is, and the Latin American people are smaller percentage than that, I guess. Bigger in Florida, but generally smaller. So America has become more homogeneous, and Canada has become heterogeneous.
多様なものを受け入れるのが大切で、既存の価値観の人たちが、変わることの必要性を語っていました。アメリカについてこれまで私は、人種のるつぼで多様性の象徴というイメージがありましたが、実は閉鎖的で単一の価値観になっていると言っています。ビジネスで成功して豊かな暮らしを目指すという価値観でしょうか。それが仮に単一の価値観でも、日本の高度経済成長期のように、多くの人が満足できればまとまることができるけれども、一部の人しか満足できない。こういったとき、負のエネルギーが溜まってくるのでしょう。そしてネット社会が閉鎖的なコミュニケーションを加速している。私は今アメリカが直面している課題をそんなふうに捉えました。いよいよ最後の質問です。価値観の異なる人たち、立場が異なる組織はどのようにして力を合わせていくのか、多様性社会の先輩に聞いていました。
It's interesting. You're bringing everything we've discussed into one place now, because that in itself could be a movement, and it could be a positive movement in the sense that somebody or some group kind of defines how Japan could, how all those forces could come together, could coalesce. As I'm talking, there could be a coalescing of these forces of women, of young people, of people questioning what's going on, of people don't want to be greedy, of everything we've talked about. All those people have common cause. They have common cause. And maybe what could consolidate them is the idea that Japan could show the world. Japan could show the world how balance can really function, because the world really needs it now. I think Japan could do that. I think Brazil could do that, not with its current head of state, but I think Brazil could do that, because the people are the basis in Brazil, and the people are the basis in Japan. And maybe some kind of definition, we did our Declaration of Interdependence, and maybe that should be translated into Japanese. And maybe that could be a kind of a definition or something like that. But maybe some kind of movement that basically says Japan could show the world how to go forward. Maybe that's a nice expression, Japan could show the world how to go forward.
答えはあなたの中にあるというのが彼の回答でした。カナダの真似をするんではなくて、あなたの中にある真実を探求することだ。そしてそれを示せる可能性がある。期待しているよというふうに受け取りました。最後に追加の質問で、今回のような本質を探求する対話の場について聞いていました。
Well, I think coaching ourselves provides that in a kind of commercial way, in a business way. But but I always thought we should have coachingourselves.org, which could do it in a social way. If we have time for, we have a topic called Time for Dialogue. That doesn't have to be done in a business. That could be done at home. People could sit around and do that. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Please, I would love to see Rebalancing Society in Japan, in Japanese, because I think, as I said, I think Japan is one of the few countries in the world that could really take it forward and show other countries. And Japan is the biggest full democracy in the world, according to the Economist Index. And so who better to take Rebalancing Society that way? So thank you. I would be so delighted to see that translation. Thank you.